Hey everybody, this is Perch and Joe. I
Yes.
think people are going to be excited by this. We're going to talk about a comic that you've been kind of excited by and you've been
Yeah.
reading and enjoying.
Mhm.
And people are going to be like, "All right, is he about to talk what Silver Age book is he about to talk about? What kind of independent books is he going to talk about?" You have been reading and enjoying Chainsaw Man.
I have been.
All right. So first of all, why did you start Chainsaw Man? What led you to that book?
It was something I had wanted to read for a little bit. It was one of those things, and I think this happened with a lot of people. So I don't know if y'all remember, but back in 2020, there was this whole pandemic thing, and we had a lockdown.
What? I'd forgotten all about that.
Yeah, so I'm going through. I'm reading a ton, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to go and check out some manga, but there was this like long stretch of time where they were like, "Oh well, Chainsaw Man's like volumes like 1 through 3 are out of print, and it's paper shortage and blah blah blah, and we're not going to be able to get it all back in print." So like, it wasn't until I forget if it was like end of last year or something like that when it was like just starting to come back into print. And so, I was picking that up and reading those. And I mean the premise obviously is crazy. People were talking it up, so I really wanted to check it out because it seemed like it fit a bunch of things I like.
Well, let's talk about the premise. So, real quickly, if you are not familiar with Chainsaw Man, this was something that was in Shonen Jump. Fujimoto-san is the writer artist, who's a pretty. I mean, he's done a number of other series, Fire Punch in particular, some pretty cool stuff. So, known for I think somewhat bonkers kind of books, and also there's some kind of some. I would say slice of life, but there's some nice emotional stuff in there in his library as well. But Chainsaw Man, the basic idea is that you have this kind of kid who's and correct me if I'm wrong in this because it's been a while actually since I
Mhm.
first read this.
Sure.
He I don't remember why he owed money and so he was hunting devils basically or demons.
Yeah.
And then he'd had this little sidekick devil that was like a puppy with a chainsaw nose.
Yeah,
Um,
like Pochita or whatever.
Cheetah. That's right.
Yeah.
And he's basically out killing things, but he's living in this impoverished life. And then the person bankrolling him turns on him,
Mhm.
and he gets basically murdered or ish.
Yeah.
And his body fuses with the demon dog, and it grants him this ability to transform his body. I mean, it seemed to have augmented his fighting skills as well. He became far more of a badass, but he could basically
Yeah.
transform parts of his body into chainsaw bits. And that is the premise of the book.
Yeah. Well, in particular, the whole thing is like
Yeah.
it's like Yakuza that it's
Yeah.
not that he owes the money, but they claimed his dad owed money and like put him into servitude. And
That's right.
um,
That's right. Yeah. It's a
I
family.
think
Yeah.
the implication I'm pretty sure is that he doesn't like they're really taking advantage of him, and he probably doesn't owe as much as that. Yeah, like that kind of stuff going on.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It was his dad who was dead. Yeah, that's right. He had this debt and his family debt, so it kind of had this family honor thing going on. But
Yeah,
you did get the impression that they were screwing him.
yeah,
But basically that entire setup, what I just mentioned, is and this is one of the things that I think manga does well. That is not if this was comics, Western comics. I think what I just described would be the first 40 issues. This was told in like 16 pages, what I just described, and then you're off to the races.
yeah. Yeah, this is like before the end of like the first chapter, you get
Yeah,
all of that. Yeah.
pretty bonkers series. But tell me, so I remember I was talking to you a few weeks ago, and you were saying
Mhm.
you're reading through this, and there's obviously different arcs that go through in the volumes that you're reading, and it is one of those. It's not slow burn exactly because that is definitely
Yeah.
not the way I describe this book. But there is a point where this entire series flips and it gets a hell of a lot weirder and
Oh, yeah.
just insane. So let's talk about that. Like, tell us what you liked about the series.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that stuff. Like when it gets a little crazier, because like the first, like I want to say, if you're reading like the physical
Mhm.
Tokuban
The Viz book, yeah.
trades. Yeah, that the first like 4 volumes, there's a lot of that typical kind of immature, like Denji is just kind of like, I'll do anything to grab some nice tits, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not even, I'm
Well,
not
sure. Yeah.
exaggerating, like that's like basically verbatim dialogue of just characters who are just like well, Denji, if you do this, I'll let you, you can grope me and you can stick your tongue down my throat, like that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a and that stuff, there's still some of that there later, but there's a significant drop off after a certain point because Genji grows as a character
Yeah. What?
fairly quickly and decides like, oh, I thought this was a thing I was supposed to want, and it's like it's not that I don't want it, but it doesn't have to be the sole excuse for me existing. And like
Yeah.
he starts learning things like, oh, I care about other people, and maybe that's important, and maybe that's a reason to do things and live that are outside just
Mhm.
grabbing breasts and things like that.
Yeah, he does. He gets kind of over his case of the hornies in the first arc, and when you get to that second arc, but it is remarkable to me because really, when you think about manga series, you think about things like One Piece, Dragon Ball, Naruto, some of these other series. Chainsaw Man is not. It doesn't have that much. I mean, it's not. There's not that many volumes compared to several of these other stories. It
Yeah.
is. It's got less material, but as you say, you do get some pretty I don't not rapid but meaningful character development. I mean, the character does
Oh yeah.
shift, but you see the character grow. And I think that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite parts of this whole book is you do see him evolve.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. You see him evolve, and he's evolving as like the lore of the book is continuing to grow, and it's done really well at like a nice pace of like, oh, this character's changing a bit, but we're also learning more about this world. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's like angels and demons, and like later on, you get like characters that are like, well, this character is like a bit of both, and
Hmm.
and things like that, and yeah, and it does fall into a trope that, I mean, there's plenty of tropes that are
Oh, always, yeah.
used here, but I feel like, I mean, this has been a manga trope for a while, but like, I feel like a lot of popular manga the past few years or so, at least half of them fall into the trope of like, we're actually a secret government organization, and we take out the devils or kaiju or monsters or aliens,
Yeah.
and this is our livelihood, then there's always the all different manga that you have that, and then there's like the one character that's kind of like Denji here in all of those, that's like the maybe sheltered naive kind of character who's like, oh my god, I never left my hometown before, this is great, oh my god, I'm on a train and they serve meals here, and like things like
Yeah.
that. It's like so there's like a
True.
little bit of that, but yeah.
It's true. I think the series does manage to give us some left turns. I like the world that. So here's one thing that I never quite understood. So they altered the timeline, but it was unclear to me why they altered the timeline. Did you? I mean, the Devil's altered timeline, but what was the point of that? So they altered how kind of what wars have taken place,
Yeah.
disease, armaments. But did you? Why was that? Was it just to create a new environment, or what was the point of that? Do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure because like it definitely took me off guard. Like as I'm reading, I'm like, Soviet Union. When did this take place?
Yeah.
But I guess like the only thing I can think of is like, well, it's a fictional world, so fuck it.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we have the Soviet Union? That sounds more intimidating than this like cancer and Parkinson's riddled lunatic slowly dying somewhere as his empire
Yes.
falls apart.
I I
Yeah.
think. Do you think so? Some people have speculated, and that part of the storytelling of a lot of manga, but definitely Fujimoto-san and kind of what he's put together, is this desire to create environments and situations where people are off balance.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that works with Chainsaw Man, it does have the tropes you talk about. There is definitely the I'd like to grab your tits aspects of the character and other things like that. But the story also does a good job of making you feel uncomfortable in that it does not feel like a familiar. It feels askew just enough that the book feels different and it engages the reader more. Do you think there's some truth to that?
No, I think so. I think we had talked about this some weeks ago about how it's it has a lot of parallels to like Doom Patrol.
It does. Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, so like it takes a little bit for it to clearly be like that, kind of like Doom Patrol, but but yeah, there's those sort of elements where like you get into these really weird situations because these different devils have different powers, and some of their powers are really obscure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, we're in this room, and this room is actually a devil, like things
Yeah.
like that. And it's like it's cool stuff, but yeah, it's
I
you
like
kind
that.
of have
I like that Doom Patrol comparison a lot. So I just to kind of highlight in that, I think that is, and because it always comes down to what are the people who are going to really enjoy it. I think if you enjoyed Chainsaw Man, or conversely you enjoyed Doom Patrol, I agree. I think you'd get you would enjoy the other. If you enjoyed one, I think you're going to enjoy the other.
Yeah, this almost feels more like what you would think Gerard Way writing Doom Patrol would be than
Yes.
the Gerard Way Doom Patrol we got.
I totally agree. So I people were recommending that. I came across that the other day. They're like, you've got to read Gerard Way's Doom Patrol, and it's okay. It's fine. I feel like I'm the crazy one. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as most of the other Doom Patrol runs.
Yeah.
And Chainsaw Man, I think, is what at least I had in mind of where the series should have gone, could have gone. But anyway, I'm glad you said that. So
yeah.
So I guess to kind of wrap this all up, so Chainsaw Man, you're giving it a pretty big recommendation, yeah?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. You don't have to take my word for it. People have been going crazy about it for a while, and now that the anime has hit the U.S.
On Hulu,
I
right?
think that yeah, it's on Hulu. I think it's like 5 episodes in at the time of recording this, but but yeah, it's like I think there's already people checking it out, so I'm sure half the comments are going to be like, hey, late to the party, guys, or whatever. And, fuck you guys. But yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Mumbles. No, I think Chainsaw Man it's a good series. It is definitely worth checking out. What about the people who say manga is just too dense? It's too like I like Western, because there's a lot of those people who are like, I like Western comics, or actually quite a few that I hate Western comics, but I won't go to manga. It's too different, too strange. The pages aren't colored, the eyes are too big, which is weirdly, anyway, I won't go in there. But what do you say to those people who would say, I refuse to check this out because I'm not going to do manga? I feel like Chainsaw Man is one of those series that you can enjoy it. It's weird, it's different, it's certainly violent. There are tits. You got plenty of things that if you've resisted manga, I think this might appeal to you. What do you think?
I would think so. I think this is like oddly accessible in a way. I know it's like, oh, it's a guy with a demon that turns into a chainsaw monster and works for a government agency, and the Soviet Union's still around and stuff like that. That might be like, what? But no, I mean, it's a story about this like young guy who's trying to figure out his life and who he is. And it's all like, it's really, when you strip it down, it's this guy who's never really had agency in his life, and everyone's told him what to do, and it's about him kind of learning that he can have agency, he can do some things on his own, he can make his own decisions, and that's kind of like the core of the story. And then he just fights a bunch of monsters along the way.
Yeah, I think it's one of those comics that or manga. It's one of those series that is really going to give you something different but it's going to feel like a familiar story at the same time. It's got a lot of pieces that are comfortable and a lot of pieces that will give you something new. That was a big wishy-washy statement on my part. But anyway, Chainsaw Man, you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. No, next time we'll go back to talking Silver Age Lois Lane doing something shitty to try and get Superman's attention. But for now,
Yeah, no,
Chainsaw
that would
Man.
be great. Yes, for now, Chainsaw Man. Absolutely.
Wonderful.